Hi, my name's Gavin Bottrell. My website's hickorygolf.co.uk. I'm going to tell you about this set of Hickory irons that I've made up. So this is what's called an associated set, because I didn't acquire them as a set. I basically found them individually and made them into a set which can be played with. So the least lofted iron is this one, which is called a cleek, and it's actually stamped cleek on the bottom there. You can see that. Oops, turned it the right way around, I think. Yeah. Okay, so cleeks have very little loft, and this has 22 degrees of loft, and its swing weight is C4, so slightly less than a modern iron, which is not unusual when it comes to hickories. I've repinned the hosel here, which I do on a lot of irons, and a lot of people say that they do that with every hickory they obtain before putting it into play. My personal view, having had 20 years experience of playing with hickory, is if a club doesn't exhibit any movement between the head and the shaft and is very, very tight, I generally tend to leave them alone. But one way of testing is to actually bounce it on a hard surface, and I'll just bounce this handle down onto my garage floor, and if you get a sort of buzzing, slight buzzing tone ring out, that can often indicate that a head does need reshafted, and it's a case of knocking out the pin and using some appropriate glue. I tend to use epoxy, and then repinning it. And if you check out one of my other videos, it will show me repinning an iron. So that's the longest club in this set at 22 degrees. Next we have an iron that's stamped number 1, and I should say all of these irons, you see, I have got this stamp of LB, which is Lockwood and Brown of Jermyn Street, London. I don't know a lot about that company, but I believe they were a gentleman's outfitters that sold all manner of clothes and sporting, hunting, fishing equipment. And these clubs, I would say, are late 1920s or possibly the first year or two of the 1930s. So this is the one iron. This is 28 degrees, so 6 degrees of separation from the cleek, and is actually about the same length in the shaft. There's very, very little between them, perhaps 1/8 of an inch. Then we have a 2 iron at 32 degrees, so 4 degrees up from the 1 iron, and all of these clubs have dot faces, I should say. People ask me if dot faces or line faces are better. I don't have a personal preference. Generally, with very, very short irons, I would say that line faces tend to be a little bit better. I just had to pause the video there because somebody turned up at our house, typically an Amazon delivery driver, which seems to be the main type of person that's on the road these days. Okay, so we've done the 1 iron, the 2 iron, the cleek, and now we're on to, let me just check, sorry, a club which is stamped a mashie and this one is at 37 degrees, so that is typical for a mashie, 37 degrees, and on the sole it's stamped mashie. Swing weight on that one, we're now up to D0, so more towards a modern club. And then we have another mashie, but this one's stamped mashie 5. So it's stamped, is it actually stamped Mashie? No, it's just actually stamped 5. But it has a very similar, or similar but slightly deeper face. Excuse me a minute. So I've just been interrupted again whilst I was doing this video by my son, who just wanted to know, he's just passed his driving test and he wanted to know if he could take the car out. Hey ho. So these are the two Mashies. One is at 37 degrees and then the one with a slightly deeper face. I don't know if that really comes through on the camera, but it's just slightly more narrower in this direction and slightly deeper in this direction. Is at 41 degrees. So they're the two Mashies. Then we have a Mashie Niblick, and Mashie Niblicks have a different shaped face than Mashies. As you can see there, they are much more oval in shape, and you get used to, actually, once you've been handling clubs for a long time, you can more or less spot the different types of club from quite a distance away without inspecting it or at close range. So that's the Mashie Niblick, and that's at 45 degrees, which is about a modern pitching wedge, actually. 45 degrees, I think, now sets are turning out with. So that's the Mashie Niblick. And then we have a Niblick, which is again slightly different shape from Mashie Niblicks. It's much more circular. Not totally circular, but it has a much deeper depth. Typically, Mashie Niblicks do in this direction. So that's the Niblick, and that one is stamped an 8 Niblick. So maybe originally this club was part of an 8 club set, and on one of the video I've just done about a matching nickel set, the Niblick in that set was the 8th iron. So it's not uncommon to see Niblicks stamped with number 8. It's not uncommon to see Mashie Niblicks stamped with number 7. It's not uncommon to see Mashies stamped with number 5. So what was the number 6? Well, a lot of jiggers are typically filled the number 6 slot, but actually in terms of loft they were stronger than the Mashies, so it was a bit of a strange relationship, but that's what happened. The jiggers slotted in at number 6. Okay, and then in this set, my final most lofted club is actually a Mashie Niblick, but I've altered the loft on this so that it's 55 degrees, which is a modern sand wedge, because this head has a large flange sticking out here, so a much wider sole. By increasing the loft, it's meant that this angle here, the bounce angle, has gone from being what would be termed a digging in sole to a bounce sole, a positive bounce sole. Okay, probably can see it better on that angle, and that's what you want with particularly a sand wedge. So ideally, it would have a face that was a little bit deeper in this direction, but really on a sand wedge all the work is being done down here. These holes are original, and I've had a few L&B irons over the years that have had exactly the same drilled holes here. So presumably they did that to take weight out of the head. Now this iron comes in now at D4, so slightly heavier than a modern swing weighted iron, but it is stamped Mashie Niblick. But as I say, crank the loft so it works as the sand wedge in the set. So this is a very nice set, which I posted some pictures on my Facebook page about a few weeks ago, and hopefully very soon somebody will decide to buy them and play with them and enjoy them. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please email me at info@timewarpgolf.com, or my website is hickorygolf.co.uk. Thanks, bye.